Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I'm mending my spring and summer clothes. So over the past year, for whatever reason, a lot of my spring and summer clothes have become damaged. So I'm going to go ahead and take the time to repair them today so that I can start wearing them again. The first piece that I'm going to mend is this lightweight green linen top. I've had this for a few years and I love wearing it in the summer because it's so lightweight and breezy. But the straps are a little bit long and I find it sits too low on my chest. So I'm going to unpick the seam, shorten the straps, and sew it back up. So this one should be a really quick fix but make a really big difference. So first, I grabbed my seam ripper and tried to rip the straps off of the bodice pieces. Because this fabric was so lightweight and had been sewn sloppily by the fast fashion company that I bought it from, it was extremely challenging to seam rip the straps off of the bodice. So I just decided to neatly cut them off instead using my fabric scissors. Once I'd cut them, I overlapped the strap with the bodice piece and took off about 1.5 inches on either side to shorten the straps. Then I took it over to my sewing machine and sewed it on using a top stitch. Next up, I have this lightweight, form-fitted, dusty rose cardigan. On this one, the button just popped off the top, and so I'm just going to reattach the button. I still have the original, so this one should be super quick and easy. So for this repair, it was a simple matter of attaching the button back onto my cardigan. To do that, I got some thread and a needle and started hand sewing the button to the cardigan. I always leave the tail of my thread hanging on the underside as I stitch the button. And then when I'm done, I tie a knot with both pieces of thread to secure it in place. I thrifted this dress several years ago and I've enjoyed wearing it every summer since. It's a really pretty cotton material and I just find it's breathable and comfortable to wear. There is a slit in the bottom of this dress, and last summer when I was wearing it, it ripped open a few inches higher, and so when I wear it, it's a little bit too high of a slit for my personal comfort. So I'm going to go ahead and just stitch this closed a few more inches so it's more like the original slit was. So for this repair, all I had to do was align the front pieces of the skirt together and overlap them. I then pinned this in place so that it wouldn't move around. I took it over to my sewing machine and top stitched the two pieces together, adding about 3 to 4 inches onto the length of the seam so that the slit would start farther down on my leg. So this is another vintage dress. This is a sarong style dress that ties at the front. I got this several years ago from a vintage seller online and I really love wearing it. It was actually made in Honolulu, Hawaii, and it definitely makes me happy and think about Hawaii every time I put it on. So there's a small slit in the back of this dress, but last summer when I was wearing it, the slit opened up, and so now it's far too high up on the back, and so it needs to be sewn back together so that I feel comfortable wearing it again. So for this repair, I needed to flatten the seam allowance on the inside of both pieces of the slit. Then I pinned bits of the seam allowance right sides together, and took it over to my sewing machine. I sewed at about 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is the seam allowance that the original dress used. Last but not least, I'm going to be working on this linen jumpsuit. So I got this from a fast fashion retailer a few years ago. To be honest, it's my dream jumpsuit in terms of fabric and design. I've always wanted something like this. But unfortunately, I don't think it's the best quality. The fabric has started to rip in several places, so I just think the fabric itself is a little bit cheap. The biggest rip is right here. I'm gonna do my best to stitch it up because I do really like this piece, but it might be a little bit challenging, so I'm gonna see how things go. But I really hope I can get this piece fixed up because it's really lightweight and fun to wear for the summer. So to repair this hole, I turned my jumpsuit inside out. I pinned the fabric on either sides of the hole, right sides together. I had to sew a bit further in than the original seam allowance, so I was hoping that this wouldn't end up looking too puckered and obvious. I sewed as close as I could to the original seam allowance, and when I was done, I turned it right side out and pressed it. This last piece I have to repair is a wrap top that I made using a pattern called the Butterfly Blouse from Decades of Style Pattern Company. I made it when I just started sewing, and I was supposed to add a slit in the waist seam for the tie to go through. At the time, this seemed too confusing for me, so I just never put the slit in. Now that I'm a bit more experienced, I think I can make the slit work. I sewed this garment with French seams originally, so in order to add the slit, I'm going to need to pick out the 2 layers of stitching. I'm measuring the width of my tie, so I know how wide to make my slit. I'm going to very carefully stitch in the sides of my French seam allowance first, and then I'll unpick the middle. Stitching along the seam allowance will help to keep my French seams in place. So that was all of the quick fixes and mending that I wanted to do on my summer clothes this year. I hope you enjoyed following along as I mended and repaired some of my spring and summer clothes. Mending clothes that we already own is a really important part of sustainability. Often when things become stained, damaged, or broken, they're just donated and then they don't end up being used, they go to landfill. And so all of the garments you saw me mending today are things that I like to wear, even though I've had them for a long time. And it was so quick and easy to get them fixed up and ready to be worn again. Making this video forced me to face my mending pile, for which I'm so glad because it had been building up for a long time. So I would like to urge all of you to go ahead and tackle your mending piles as well. Even if you end up deciding that you want to pass a garment along, try to mend it up first before you donate it so that someone will be more likely to use it when you're done with it. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I post lots of sewing and crafting related content and I would love to have you here. All right, I'll see you in my next one. Bye.